This week's large-scale naval maneuvers organized by the US with South Korea in the Sea of Japan underlines just how different the American and the Chinese approaches to the challenge of North Korea are. The Americans are striking a tough public pose, but what are the Chinese doing about North Korea and why? BOM's Tom Spender finds out.
This week's big joint US-South Korean naval exercises in the Sea of Japan have made China uneasy because of their geographical proximity to the mainland. The maneuvers involve an aircraft carrier and 200 aircraft, and are being staged in response to the sinking of a South Korean warship in March. South Korea and the US believe it was North Korea that torpedoed the Cheonan warship and say their joint naval drill is intended to deter North Korea from undertaking military action. But America's response to the Cheonan sinking, in which 46 South Korean sailors died, is in stark contrast to China's own reaction. Where the US is aiming a belligerent show of force at North Korea, China has yet even to pronounce any kind of judgment about what could have caused the Cheonan sinking in the first place. Both Chinese and US officials say they want peace on the Korean peninsula. But China's different approach to North Korea is causing it a headache internationally, where some observers wonder why it appears to be propping up one of the world's most unpleasant regimes.
You may feel better by doing something, okay? But then you may feel worse if you do something wrong. when you does it. For example, some people push for regime change in North Korea. The problem is what will happen afterwards. Okay? We had regime change in Afghanistan, in Iraq. Okay? Millions of people, get hurt. A lot of people lost lives. So we have to think about the consequence of our action before we act. Okay? This is what the Chinese have a lot of difficulty of telling other people about its options at times.
China shares a border with North Korea and so has different concerns from those of the US. It is also not as worried about North Korea's nuclear capability as the US, according to some analysts. But beyond those differences, China's overall foreign policy approach is born of a very different cultural outlook.
In Chinese culture, we don't believe in the omnipotent power of human beings. Chinese tend to put human beings as part of nature. Okay? You're not supposed to change nature to some extent. You are supposed to adapt to it. Okay? International society is part of the nature. China tries to adapt to the international society and try to make its relationship with the outside world harmonious. Okay? In the West, you tend to take an approach that you can do something to change things.
As such, China doesn't tell the North Korean regime what to do. Instead, it hopes its own example will inspire the regime in Pyongyang to pursue a similar path of development.
Like during the past 30 years plus, China has managed to develop very rapidly, not by changing the outside world, but by changing itself. But then China changes the outside world anyway when itself changes. Okay, China now becomes a major economy with a lot of influence, and then the world begins to look at its relationship with China in a different way. They come to China, they look at China. Okay. Chinese show them what China has accomplished, and in the hope that they would think that it's also in their interest to do similar things. China believes that people in all countries are of same IQ. Okay? They understand, they appreciate what is the best for them. It doesn't require China to tell them what is best for them, for the North Koreans. Okay? They will learn, they will understand. Okay? Ultimately, what is good for them, and Chinese believe that what is good for them is also good for China.
But as tensions remain high on the Korean peninsula, it's unclear whether either American military posturing or China's example of economic development will have any influence on the North Koreans at all. And the sense of crisis surrounding North Korea means the two must continue to work together in spite of their different priorities and ways of trying to achieve them.
I don't know what's going to happen. Chaos. I think China, the US, South Korea, maybe Japan, we should cooperate more closely to make sure that whatever happens, we can make the best out of it.
Tom Spender, BON.
Very enlightening piece from Tom Spencer there. Now, it's interesting to note, actually, Ali, that the US manoeuvres were originally planned to take place in the Yellow Sea between the Chinese mainland and the Korean Peninsula, because this was where the Shonan sank. So, obviously, planning to do this in an area of intense symbolism. But the South Korean Defence Ministry said that the manoeuvres were relocated from the sensitive Yellow Sea to the Sea of Japan, following very strong protests from China.
Yeah, and this actually goes back to that Shonan incident, which was very sparked up a lot of tension in this region, the Korean Peninsula.
Indeed,
and such on. Now, the Americans and the South Koreans actually accused the North Koreans of deliberately torpedoing the Shonan, but that's not the only theory that's out there. There was one other theory advanced in some quarters, is that a Shonan struck a mine left over from earlier naval maneuvers that were carried out in the area it was sailing, which adds a new twist to this, the whole story of holding drills in the area.
It does indeed. Now, it's interesting to look at the way everyone's reacting to this. Some analysts believe that Chinese aren't really that concerned about the nuclear capability of North Korea, so that's one reason why they may be keen to take a bit of a step back. They do see the nuclear issue with North Korea as a problem for America, but for its part, China is involved because it doesn't want to see any instability of its borders. So this is why they're weighing in on this issue.